Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Model Building and Retirement. My name is Ken. In this episode, we're going to have the complete build of the Revell 1970 Buick GSX. They only made 617 versions of this car, and you had two choices, Apollo White or Saturn Yellow. I chose the yellow. Let's check out the build right after the intro. Starting with the body, which is always my first thing I like to do is get the body prepped and painted. Just my preference. So I've already looked at the body and marked the areas where there's mold separation lines or sharp edges that need to be sanded. So got a little bit of stuff here. It's not really a bad body, not much flashing or anything, but some sharp edges here. Steel panel on both sides has mold lines. The hood is not fitting really well, so it looks a little loose in the front and tight in the back, so I'm going to do some sanding there. Got two little side mirrors that are going to be body color. I'll be drilling and pinning those. And then on the front grille off the chrome tree, these two headlight bucket areas should be body color too, so I'll be masking those off and going yellow. Alright, so I'm going to start with 600 or 800 grit to get my worst areas cleaned up here. And then I'll be moving on to, I'll probably use my Trizac 5000 to finish everything off. Might have to use an intermediate of 2000 grit as well. All right, so I'm gonna get started on that. Okay, so I have everything sanded down and washed, and I also rescribed all my panel lines and around my window trim and whatnot, just so that it stays nice and pronounced. So that is all ready to go. I noticed that this was a little bit bent up in my, right out of the box, this A-pillar. So I straightened it out, but it's kind of weak. So I reinforced it with some styrene strips and glue just to give it a little bit added strength there. And I think by the time you get the windshield in there, it'll be okay as long as I don't bend it again before that period. Okay, so we're gonna go over and shoot primer. So I'm gonna use MCW Finishes white primer, gloss lacquer. Not sure why it's gloss, but we'll see. Also, I pre-drilled and pinned my mirror location, so they'll have a nice positive fitment there, because I saw there was no good place for those to sit. So, off to the spray booth. Okay, so we're out of paint. I use the MCW yellow enamel with our hardener. Came out very nice. I mean, I got one or two little dust narbs that'll be very simple to knock down. And you could certainly light sand and polish this out and probably get a nice factory look. But there's an extensive amount of decals to be added here from the decal sheet, all the black ones. And I want to bury them in clear. So it's a pretty bright color. And when I bought the model, I pictured that because I remembered in the early 70s seeing these around, in the yellow configuration with the black stripes. In fact, a lot of the cars, the Mustang Mach 1 and whatnot, yellow with the big black stripes, just really jumped out with the contrast. So that's what I was going with. But I did chicken out the last second, thought I would tone that down a little bit. So I added several drops of this competition orange. But I didn't tone it down much. It's pretty bright. I'm not a big fan of yellow, but I wanted to do a yellow car, so here we are. On the front fascia, these headlight buckets are also supposed to be body color. And when I was looking at that, it's like, well, the trouble it's going to take to mask that and the risk of any bleed through trying to spray that in just didn't seem worth it. So I just carefully brushed that in without thinning my yellow, and it worked out quite well. That's going to look real good in there. One thing I wish I would have done is I knew it had a spoiler, and I had planned on painting that black and gluing it on at the end of the project. But after more research, I found that needed to be body color, so I went ahead and shot that separately. But in hindsight, I wish I would have glued that in before any primer or paint or anything, using regular model's glue, so it would have welded it in better. Because now I'm either gonna have to try to super glue that in or use like Mod Podge. Mod Podge is much safer, but it's also not very durable, so it could be pretty easy to knock that off. So anyways, at this point, I'm just gonna do a little bit of a polishing, or not polishing, but a little bit of knockdown of the couple dust specks and start installing decals. And then once all the decals are done, we'll be going to clear coat. they don't give you the full blackout decal for the hood, so I'm going to have to paint that semi-gloss black. But I did put the two, there's like a stripe with the pinstripe where the edge of the painted hood will be. And there's a tachometer that goes on there that'll be black. So what my plan is here is I'll clear coat over this, and then I'm going to mask on that fatter line the best I can outward, and then spray this semi-gloss with Tamiya semi-gloss, and then peel it up and hope I don't have any bleed through. Now in the middle, you're supposed to still be orange too, or yellow, I'm sorry. And they give you this decal here right on this center sheet here, the one with the point here. Now if I put that on now, I'm gonna have it's so fine of a pinstripe that I would have a lot of trouble masking up to that. So unfortunately what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put that on after I've blacked out the hood. And the only difference is that yellow is going to be not as glossy as my paint job's gonna be. But I'm gonna let that ride because it's gonna look better than if I tried to do it the other way and mess it up. So worst case scenario, I just leave the hood black all the way down the middle. It's just not the way the real car was. Okay, so we'll let that all dry up and move on to the next step. I've had some commenters ask me regarding bare metal foil. Some have asked why I am doing it after clear. Others asked if they can do it before clear. I was taught to do it after, so that's all I've been doing. So I didn't really have a good answer. So this is going to be a guinea pig. I did my bare metal foil, and now I'm going to clear over that too, and that way I'll be able to give you a formed opinion. You know, I was watching the podcast with James Tester and the boys from Scale Model Experiment on Sunday or Monday evening, and they were talking about advice on Facebook. You know, like if somebody asked me, should I do this now or should I do this later, or I have trouble with my paint or whatever, you get 100 different answers, and some of them even seem to be set up for disaster answers. So I'm not going to answer somebody unless I know, or I'll give an opinion or a guess, but I'll clarify that it's a guess. But in this case, I'm doing it as an experiment, so this way in the future I can tell you exactly how I feel about it. So I also did the marker lights. I'm going to fill that with Tamiya clear red in the back and clear amber in the front, and then I'll clear the entire car. So we'll be back. Okay, so out of clear coat, I also went ahead and tinted and installed my windows. And if you haven't seen it yet, go back and watch my how to tint window episode. Show you how I do that with an airbrush. So I had a little bit of dust in the paint, not too much, but I went ahead and just did a quick little wet sand and a little bit of a polish here, and I think the paint flattened out really nice. It really helps to keep your booth in good condition and your gun in good condition. You know, minimizes the risk of all that bad stuff, and I really didn't have too much of an issue. So I'm pretty satisfied with the paint. I think it looks really nice and glossy. All right, so the next step on the body. Oh, by the way, I wanted to mention about bare metal foil before clear coat, which was my first attempt at doing that because I had been asked about it. One advantage I noticed is, you know, when I do the 2K clear, that's kind of a thick paint, you know, so you lose a little bit of definition when you do that. So I found it was a little bit easier to scribe or cut my foil with my number 11 blade before I clear coated. It just was a little bit easier because the lines were crisper. So that was an advantage. Really don't see a disadvantage for it. So I would say case closed. You can foil at the end or you can foil before clear coat. The only risk I think there is if you accidentally peeled it up somehow after clear coat, you are going to peel up clear coat too. You're not going to be able to just repair your foil. All right, so one thing I did not foil yet is going to be this chrome on the rocker. So I'm going to get that done, and then the engine compartment needs some blackout paint, so that's coming up. And then finally, the hood. The kit comes with the two little stripes that border the blacked out hood. So I went ahead and installed them and clear coated over it. And I installed my tack already. So now I need to mask off where the yellow is going to remain and where I'm going to paint the black. So I'm going to get that taped off and we'll be right back. Okay, so to mask off the hood, I'm going to use my Scotch plastic tape, which is an 1/8 inch wide vinyl tape. And you can get this at any automotive store, automotive paint store for sure. And you know, it's very flexible. It has a very crisp line, and it's a fine line tape used for like masking off artwork, such as like a flame job on a real car or whatever. I bought this years ago, so I'm not sure exactly where you can get it, but it's a 3M product, number 06404. So what I did is I just cut off a piece bigger than the hood here, and I'm going to just use the decal line get my glass in here better, my magnifier. Still difficult to do things for the camera and be able to see for me. All right, so I'm just gonna very carefully lay this down over the existing decal right at the edge. Okay, then next up I'm just using my, I'm using frog tape, but you could use Tamiya tape. I'm told that frog tape and Tamiya tape are very similar, except for frog tape is cheaper and you can cut it to whatever thickness you want. Now as far as using that blue fine line, that's an option. I just happen to have it and I know it's crisp, but I've never had bleed through happen when I use it. So you don't have to. I mean, if you're going to use your Tamiya tape and you tape it off very well and you make sure that edge is down, then you can skip the fine line. But I would say if you have it, use it because it's just an extra safe precaution. Okay, just making sure that she's pushed down really, really well. Okay, so the hood is ready to spray. gonna get my paint mixed up now.
Okay, at the booth, 0.35 millimeter needle and nozzle, semi-gloss black mixed and ready, 50-50 with Mr. Color leveling thinner. First coat, a light coat. I did scuff that yellow just a little bit with some 5000s Trizac. So I'm just dusting this in nice and light because I'm making sure I can get my details in there. And then once I'm happy with my detail, it's just 50-50. Overlapping 50%. Got to get inside that tack a little bit on the edge. Keeping my paint and air on at all times, basically. Okay, coat number 2 is going to be a medium wet coat. Using my lights up above to see the reflection of that paint as it goes on. Okay, gonna lay on my third coat, nice wet coat, medium wet coat. Now you can see that's much wetter. Dry spot. Okay, so it looks really nice and glossy here. It'll dry a little bit, it'll dry more satin because it is a semi-gloss. So we're going to give that about 20-30 minutes, and then we'll pull the masking tape and see what it got us. Okay, I'm pulling back at about a 45. Okay. So very nice, very nice. Now, one thing I'm noticing, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, and comment below if you have, but I'm noticing an inconsistency with the Tamiya semi-gloss. Like, that was a brand new bottle there, and it's pretty glossy. You know, here's one that I did on my seats, which is toward the flat side. Definitely satin to the flat side. And a brand new bottle of semi-gloss is, you know, in my opinion, just a little more glossy. I really don't want that shine. I want more of a satin finish. So I'm gonna let that set up real good and we'll see. I mean, worst case scenario, I can put a dull coat over that to dull it up a little bit, but all right, got that done. And then also engine compartment brush painting on this. Just pull the tape back here and see how that's going. Judges on me. All right, I'm going to clean up that little bit of mess there on the fender, and we'll be back. Okay, so I decided to live with that hood being a little glossier than it should be. So I'm going to go ahead and install that yellow decal right down the center of the hood here. All right, that was some sloppy work. Get a paintbrush here and we'll fix that, no problem here. Just kind of rolling that along. Hopefully don't grab it and move it. I'm rolling it along to kind of sop up the water and Remove any bubbles below. Okay, she's in place. All right, so I'm gonna start working on the grill, and I'm gonna use some black acrylic craft paint, 99-cent stuff, mixed with a little bit of deionized water and a cap here. And instead of using my panel liner in the grill, I chose to do this because I want to be blacker. So I'm going to just paint this in with a very fine painted brush. The panel liner works really, really nice, but sometimes you just want a more blacked out looking grill. And then the craft paint works out better. Go with it, so. All right, I'm gonna keep going with this, and I'll be back once I get that all done. Okay, so I got that grill blacked out pretty well. Probably give it one more coat a little bit later. So next I'm gonna use a little bit of, even though this grill has glass for the headlights and glass to go into the parking lights up front and turn signals, I'm still going to put some Tamiya clear orange over the turn signals, and then the lenses on top of that. So once again, a little detail brush here. I think you've heard me say it before if you've watched any of my other videos, but I just love the way that that clear orange and clear red work with chrome. Just gives it a very, it looks like a lens, it looks like a light. Okay, so I got my orange in there. And on the back bumper, I put some black right there in the center where it's going to say Buick. I'm going to get a second coat on there. And once it's totally dry, I'm going to lightly burnish that with a Q-tip to bring the letters back out. We'll be back. All right, so now I am putting the headlights and marker lights or parking lights in. I've already took them off the tree and filed them really good. So what I use is a little bit of blue tack on a toothpick to carefully pick these up. And if you look at your headlights, they got a little grit on them. So there's vertical and horizontal lines. So it's very important to clock them right, especially if you're going to do any up-close photography like I do. If they're clocked crooked, it definitely shows up on camera. Might not notice it on a shelf. All right, so I clocked it in real good. I'm just pressing it into place a little bit there to make sure that it's seated. And then what I did is I mixed up a little bit of Mod Podge, slightly diluted in water, and a very detailed little brush here. And just get a little bit of glue on the brush, and I'm just dotting it in at like 4 different corners here, being careful not to move that light. Okay, and I'm going to let that glue set up, and then I'll come back with, again, a little bit more diluted glue, and I'll coat the entire light because it'll give it a little bit more of a realistic appearance and make sure it's glued in there really good. So it picks up with that blue tack. And even though this Mod Podge does dry clear, a little bit of diluted just ensures that it doesn't have any cloudiness to it. Okay, now I also got one of the parking lights in, and it's the same thing here. I'm going to pick up with my blue tack, and I'm going to set it into place. Make sure it's pushed in a position.
seat it in there. I'm just using the toothpick end as to kind of push it down. And same thing, just going to dot a couple bits of diluted Mod Podge. Now you can use canopy glue. People use Future floor polish. Some people use varnish or clear. Whatever you want to use, whatever you've had success with your lenses. But I've got a lifetime supply of Mod Podge here, so I have no desire to spend money and change products just because I'm having good success with this. Okay, so everything's in there. I'm just going to let that set up for about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to probably dilute my glue just a little bit more, and I'm going to coat the entire lens with it. All right, so I got my taillights off the tree and filed and cleaned. Now there's two little dimples on the back of the light and two little dimples in the bumper for a good positive placement there. So I'm going to hit a little drop of glue, the Mod Podge, right into those two little dots. I'm going to take my tail light. And you always test fit stuff first, which I did test fit this before I did this, because if they, if you're gluing it in and it's not fitting, now you got a mess on your hands. Okay, so next up, I'm gonna dilute my glue a little bit more. So I keep a little thing of deionized water close by. I keep it in an old paint jar, and I'm just using a pipette here, and I'm going to put a couple drops of water in there. I think 2 drops is probably going to be fine. We're going to stir that up. And I'm just going to stir with the tip of my brush. I'm not sure how to explain the consistency, but it's a little more translucent as you stir it up. I'm going to say probably about 50% diluted from what it was. Okay, so that's nice and diluted. So now I'm just going to coat the entire exterior of that lens. So this is doing 2 things. 1, it's gluing it into place a little bit better, and 2, it just gives it a really nice look. It enhances that lens once it dries. Right now it doesn't look so good. It gives it more of a real plastic lens appearance when it dries. All right, so we're gonna let that set up. And I'm gonna now come back to my front grille here, and I'm gonna coat those 2 parking lights. And I'm going to do the same with the headlights. Just coating the entire lens and making sure that the parameter is coated as well. It looks a little milky white right now, but I assure you it will dry clear. So it's a summer day out there, and I consider this more of a winter project or winter hobby for me. At least that's the way it started out. So it's kind of tough to get down here and do this in the summer, but it's 98 degrees and 90% humidity out there right now. So
it's not very pleasant, you know. So down here in the basement with the dehumidifier going on, it's nice and dry down here and nice and cool. Very comfy. All right, I'm gonna let that all this stuff set up. It's probably gonna take about 10 minutes or so. And then when I come back to, I'm gonna take a Q-tip and we're gonna clean up that black paint that's now dried and cured into place. So through the magic of video, you'll be back in 2 seconds, and it'll be a few minutes for me. So let me show you now that the Mod Podge is totally dried. So it's totally clear. And I don't know how well you can see it, but the turn signal lens, it's kind of got a nice little gloss to it. So do the headlights too. So it just, when you dilute that Mod Podge, it gives it a really nice clean look. Now, yeah, you can use future floor polish or canopy glue and probably get the same thing. Same with the taillights. Okay, so we got one more thing to do on the tail end of this. Is I painted the black where it says Buick in the middle there, and I let that cure. That was just with the water-based acrylic. So now I'm going to take a cotton swab and kind of rub back and forth in that groove. Up. There you go. See? Buick. Oh, I was off camera. I'm sorry. So I was just taking a Q-tip and burnishing in there like this. And chrome Buick letters are shining through. I apologize, I was off camera, so that's what I was doing. So that looks pretty good. Very happy with the back bumper there. Just got to get the license plate in place there. Now you may notice the spoiler. Off camera, I was adding the rocker panel trim here. Get the hood off. I was adding the foil rocker stuff, and I got careless handling it. And this was super glued on there. You can see where it was glued on the trunk. Well, at this point, I'm going to reattach that at the end when the model's all done. And I'm going to use white glue, so it won't be a very sturdy glue. But you know how sturdy was the super glue if I was able to knock it off right. But I'm going to wait till the car's all assembled and that totally assembled. This is going to be like the last thing I do. That and side mirrors, and I'm going to use white glue. And in the future, you know, you got to be careful where you pick up and handle it. So, okay, now I'm going to get to assembling the engine. All right, so we're moving on to the engine. And I've got some of it pre-assembled and pre-painted. I painted the block, oil pan, water pump, heads, all bright red. And then I painted the transmission bow housing and exhaust manifold silver, and the oil filter white. And then I have some accessories to put on there. You know, I got the front fan belts and pulley system, starter, and some nice chrome dress-ups to go. So I'm going to get that glued together under my magnifier so I can see what the heck I'm doing. And I'll be back as soon as I get it glued together. All right, got the engine all assembled. Air cleaner and hoses go on at a later stage. Still keeping it box stock, no wiring yet. I still haven't got around to buying pre-wired distributors. And I will admit that I tried once again to wire this. I got my wires all cut and glued, but the capillary action pulls that glue up, and I just make a mess of things, so I just threw it all away. I've been asked regarding other things too, is like, why don't I use aftermarket 3D printed items or whatnot? A couple things. One of them, I'm retired, fixed income. I don't have my nice big paychecks anymore. You know, so we're living a modest lifestyle, and you know, there's a lot of other expenses besides model building. The other thing is, I have on a couple models decided, hey, I want some different wheels and tire combos and whatnot, and I have bought 3D printed stuff off eBay. And I gotta admit, by the time you buy something and have it shipped, you know, you're paying $10 for a set of wheels or whatever. I have yet to use them. I think I bought 3 or 4 sets,
and I have yet to use them because they just didn't look right on the kit. I ended up going with what came with the kit, you know. That's not to say that there aren't people out there that are giving a good product out there, but you know, I just got to be frugal here. You know, I don't want to be paying $15 for a set of wheels that I don't like. You know, now if I get my own printer, then it's no big deal because I can resize them and get them exactly the way I want them. I might consider upgrading, but you know, this whole channel is for it's set for the beginner to learn how to build models and for retirees returning to the hobby. So right now I'm kind of sticking back to box stock basics. You know, after a while, you know, once I've built so many of these that are all the same, then then it'll be time to expand. So anyways, I think that looks pretty good. I think we're off to the interior now. So I've gathered up the interior parts next. And looking at some reference photos, I see that there was some wood grain on the console, so we're going to do some wood grain. And I'm just going to use some craft paints here. So I'm going to use a light beige first for the wood. And I'm going to put that on there wherever wood is. And then I'm going to let that dry up. And I'm either going to use a medium brown or a chestnut or a mixture of both, diluted down to make like a little bit of a wash to simulate wood grain. The kit also comes with decals for most of the gauges and the emblem for the dashboard, steering wheel emblem, and also seat belts. So I'm going to get all that installed and just use some various colors here to try to bring that interior to life a little bit. And it looks like there's separately applied armrests here too that also have the little door handles on there. So I'll be using my chrome pen a little bit on some of that stuff too. So let's get started. Okay, so I got a very fine tip little brush here, and I put a little bit of that light beige paint into a cap here. I saved my water bottle caps. I collect them all in a jar here so that I have numerous. They're disposable little pallets, if you will. So what I'm going to do here is get some beige right into where I want the wood grain. So I'm going to continue painting the wood grain, and I'll be back as soon as I get that in place. Okay, so I put the light beige where I wanted it on the console there, and you'll see there's some brush strokes and whatnot, but you know, we're simulating wood, so that's fine. So I got that, the little shifter, the handle, I painted light beige as well, and also this bottom area of the dashboard. And if you get a little bit of paint, you know, that's the cool part about craft paints here, is they're water-based. These little Q-tips here come from Hobby Lobby, and they're really nice. They come to a very nice point. They're kind of rigid. I use them for bare metal foil a lot, but even in this case, they come in handy. You just dip it in a little bit of water, and then I'll roll that across, like even my forearm here, to just sop up some of the water so it's not soaking wet. And if you get a little paint outside your lines, you can just take that edge and clean it up a little bit. Okay, so I mixed a little bit of red oxide craft paint with a little bit of chestnut, which you see right here. And I am going to dilute that a little bit with deionized water. Try that. Then I'm just going to lay that in. Okay, I need to dilute that a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is take a Q-tip and clean that up a little bit. Gonna just dip my little detail brush in there.
That's better. Okay, so that's going to work pretty good. I'm just making sure it's filling up the reservoir a little bit there where that light beige is. So I add just a couple drops of black to my cap here. Stir that up a little bit, just to darken up that wood a little bit. So once again, get my little detail brush into that wash. Just go over this one more time. And streaks are not a bad thing in this case because we're trying to simulate wood. Okay, coming in with my Q-tip to clean up. I'm not the best at this, I'll be honest with you, but for the little bit of visibility you're going to have inside that interior when this is all put together, it's not going to be a big deal if you're not perfect. Okay, just going to let that all dry up for a little bit, and then we'll put the decals in there. Alright, so I finished all the wood grain and got all the decals installed. Used my little Maltol pen to touch all the buttons and switches on the dashboard and the steering column. Door cards. Kit even comes with seat belts, which are decals. I think it came out pretty nice, you know. I mean, it's a black interior. It's not going to be very detailed or noticeable from the outside, but, you know, it detailed out fairly nice. So I'm happy with that. So next thing is the suspension. All right, so I got the chassis and all the little miscellaneous pieces together. So we're going to start gluing and assembling. I'm going to go to fast forward mode for the rest of this. Okay, everything went together really well on the chassis, front and rear suspension. And I chose, you have a choice on the kit to either go with a raised rear end or stock. And stock would be like kind of hunched down on the back wheels a little bit. Well, you know, I'm old school, so I'm going to go for a raised rear end there. Okay, so next is going to be radiator support, radiator shroud, and radiator. Get that installed. Okay, so I got the firewall just glued in there. Painted the booster gold and the top of the brake reservoir gold with silver wires around the cap for the reservoir. Now I'm going to paint these little, I'm going to detail the engine compartment before we assemble. So I'm going to paint these washer bottle and the radiator return or overflow bottles. So I'm just going with some white. Alright, so next up it is time to marry the interior into the body. Just spread a little bit. Nice positive fitment. There's a little tab in the front under the firewall and a little tab right in the back here. As long as those two lined up, you should be good. So this might be another one of those rare occasions where my assembly goes well. Usually it's my final assembly where things just go ugly on me. All right, gonna let that set up for a couple minutes. Okay. Next up is fitting the chassis to the body. Carefully spreading out the body. A little more spreading than normal because it has these fender wells that are attached to the chassis there. Okay, alignment looks real good there. And that's the hood latch assembly that goes to the back of the front grille. Do a dry fit first and see how things go. Okay, so glue points are going to be just inside the fender tabs right up here and just inside the bumper right here. I'm going to do that off camera so I can see what I'm doing. All right, we're down to the nitty gritty here. Got all the wheels put on. I like to glue all my wheels. I don't want this rolling, because I've seen too many disasters where somebody rolled their car right off a display while showing it off to somebody and the model goes into 1,000 pieces. So, all right, so I'm down to my very final step. I had pinned my mirrors earlier, so I got a pin installed and a hole drilled in the door, and I'm using a little white glue to affix it so it won't have a reaction with the paint. If you haven't seen my video on how to pin, I suggest you watch it. I'll have a link in the a link above there at the top of your screen. A little white glue, place it into position and push it down. Okay. Do the same to the other side, and we're going to be revealing in just a moment. Okay, so we get our first good look at the finished kit. at our 360 round table here. Beautiful. I love that color. Only had two choices in the GSX. It was either the Saturn Yellow or Apollo White. When I picked up the model, I knew that it had to be yellow. Actually, because I've never really built a yellow model before, so I needed something to contrast the rest of my collection. But I'm very happy with my choice. Paint came out very nice. The model assembled extremely well. I definitely recommend this kit to anybody. So okay, so we're going to get it in the garage, and I'll talk about the details of the model a little bit more. Tell you what, there's not a bad angle on this car though. She's just beautiful from every possible angle. So some of the details I did to this is on the wheels themselves. Let me zoom in on them and I'll talk about them a little bit. So as far as the wheels go, I used the wheels off the Chrome Tree, the Magnum 500s that come with the kit. I definitely used the Insignia, the Buick Insignia for the center caps. And I tinted the chrome with Tamiya smoke color. It's a transparent smoke color. If you haven't done so already, you might want to watch my video on how to tint windows and chrome. And I'll have a link for it above and also in my description. But to me, tinting that chrome just gives it a much more realistic look. You know, it just looks like a darker, deeper, triple-plated chrome. And then I, of course, where the black needs to be, I painted some gloss Tamiya, hand-painted in the wheels to give them that nice little contrast, and sanded the tires. Came out pretty nice. For the front and back side markers, I used bare metal foil and put Tamiya transparent orange on the front and transparent red on the back before clear coat, and then followed up with the clear coat. And I think they came out looking really, really nice. There are no decals for your marker lights on this model. And here's a look at the front clip of the car. Unfortunately, the hood does not fit perfectly. When you try to press down on the front to line it up, then it races the back. And then when you press it down really good, the front right is up, but the back, if you press that down, the back left rear goes up. So possibly a little bit of air dryer and warm water or something, I might be able to fix that warp, but I'm not sure about that. But anyways, okay, on the front I used black craft paint instead of just a Tamiya panel liner because I wanted that grille to be much more blacked out and opaque than panel liner would do. And then I hand brushed the headlight buckets. Only the GSX, the white or the yellow models, came with painted headlight buckets. The rest of the cars were stainless or chrome. And for the parking lights down below, I used Tamiya clear orange and then put the lenses in, and then I used Mod Podge clear over the headlights and the marker lights to give them a little bit of gloss, and that's also what I used to glue them in. Let's get a look at the engine compartment. So in the engine department, I really went box stock, nothing special, nothing pre-wired, no extra plumbing or anything, but I think it came out pretty. Fairly nice detailed engine compartment. It's got the GS 455, which was like 510 foot-pounds of torque and 360 underrated horsepower. This one has a stage 2 decal on it because I lost the stage 1, which would even give it a little bit more power. And then for the hood, I blacked it out with semi-gloss Tamiya. Came out a little bit glossier than I wanted to. I do have some inconsistencies from bottle to bottle on that semi-gloss. Sometimes it's more matte and sometimes it's more gloss, but I think I can live with it. Now, as far as that center spike going down there, that's actually a decal, which I'm glad they did because it comes with a little red pinstripe too. There was no way I was going to be able to mask that off and paint that in realistically. And the only thing that's not authentic here is right around the actual vents themselves. Should have still been yellow, but my freehand skills and even taping, I don't think I could have got that correct, so I'm just going to leave it black like it is. And I don't think there's a bad angle that could be had on this car. So looking at the back quarter there, once again, you'll see the back marker light that was done with bare metal foil and Tamiya clear red, as well as the GSX emblem on the back corner, quarter panel there.
And then on the back, the wing, I glued that on before I painted, and because that helps with lining up your decals or whatnot. But at some point I knocked that off and re-glued it on. Luckily I didn't screw up the paint, but be aware of that. But just be very careful, you know, because you don't really like to glue those kind of parts after you've painted. And here's a shot of the back of the car. Looks like Gus was checking my alignment of my bumper. He said it was a little bit low on the left side, so he's loosening up and pushing up a little bit there. But the detail in the back is beautiful as well. Used the kit decal for the license plate there. It says Buick. I believe it's New York. I do have to get some from Ohio. Probably print my own to do that. Now, as far as the red taillight lenses go, I painted the reverse lights white. And then when I glued them in, I used the Mod Podge and I diluted my Mod Podge and coated over the lenses. And to me, it gives it a nice little glossy look, which looks really nice at the end. The decals on the spoiler are pretty cool too. You know, not only is there the decal that goes across the top, but there's the GSX insignia right across the back. And then the Buick lettering right on the bumper. You know, I painted that with black and then used a Q-tip to burnish it a little bit to bring back the chrome letters. I think it came out pretty nice. Here's a real nice rear quarter shot. Once again, I think the black stripes on the bright yellow, so 1970s, but so beautiful. There's not too many cars where you can really pull that off with, but this is definitely one of them. I think some of the early Mach ones, like 69 through 71, also would have worked really good with the yellow and black contrast, but you know, this is probably the way I would have ordered this car. I guess I didn't have much choice. If I ordered the car, it would have been black or white. Couldn't afford it back then, and you certainly can't afford it now with only 617 production numbers. But there's a million clones out there, so I guess if I ever did one, I'd opt for the clone. Try to get a shot of the interior here. So you can see a little bit of the detail there, you know, the wood grain dash, and the you can actually make out the decals for the instrument gauges and whatnot. And I topped those off with a little bit of Mod Podge clear too to give them like a lens look. It's really kind of hard to see that detail here, but I think it came out pretty nice. And one final look at the reflection of the lights in the paint. Paint laid on so beautiful. It's nice and glossy. I'm very happy with this paint job. This is another one of those fun model builds. Just like anything else, every one that I build, I fall in love with. So I don't know if I have a favorite, but for this moment in time, this is my favorite. Well, I hope you enjoyed my build of the 1970 Buick GSX from Revell. It was a fun kit to build. It's my new favorite for this week anyways. Really, it was a pleasure to build, a lot of fun. I've been itching to do a model with a high contrast color, and you can't get much more high contrasting than bright yellow and black stripes. So hope you enjoyed it, and there's more to come. Please, if you like my content, please like, subscribe, and make comments below. Thank you.